This is the Homestead Journey Podcast, the podcast dedicated to the pursuit of self-sufficiency, self-reliance, and sustainability. This is episode number 116 of the Homestead Journey Podcast. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Wells. I am coming to you from 3B Farm and Homestead here in beautiful upstate New York. This week's episode is going to be a product review episode. I'm very, very excited to share with you about this product. But before we do that, let's head on over to this week's Homestead Happenings, and I will bring you up to speed with what we have been doing here on 3B Farm and Homestead. The first thing I wanted to share with you was a bit of a truck update. I believe I shared with you last week that we had to put the Ranger Danger into the shop. It had developed a bit of a knock in the engine. And so I talked to the mechanic today. There are two possible issues it could be. The first one, he said, can be repaired relatively easy from the top side of the engine and will cost about $400, I think he said, to repair. But if that is not the issue, then the other one would require us to remove the engine from the truck, tear it apart, and it would cost me about $2,500. And so right now, I think the plan is going to be for us to take a swing at the $400 repair and see if that takes care of the issue. And then if not, I think I'm going to kind of wash my hands of the Ranger Danger and see what else we can do. Now, certainly I have no interest, nor do I have the budget to buy a new truck. Folks, it's amazing to me. It's mind-blowing to me what a new truck will run. I mean, it's like 40 to 80 grand for a new truck. It's just absolutely mind-blowing to me. So I am looking right now at maybe late 80s, early 90s vintage trucks. If we're going to replace the Ranger Danger, but we will find out. Hopefully, the $400 repair will take care of the issue, and I'll be able to get a few more miles out of that Ranger. But if not, well, so be it. Now, this week on the homestead, it has been, it's just, we've had some crappy weather here. Last weekend, we had a fairly, I wouldn't say significant snowstorm, but as I shared with you, I believe on the last episode, we kind of got like 3 inches of sleet and concrete with snow on top of it. Well, then we got a bit of a thaw this week. And so right now, everything is just kind of this slushy mess. I actually I have slipped on ice more this winter than I believe I ever have. And this week, when I went over to feed Bear and his two girlfriends, Sage and Basil, I actually slipped on the ice and went down and almost slid right on into their pen underneath the hog panel there. And so then I was trying to kind of make sure that I didn't get eaten by a pig. So yeah, it's just that time of the year where you get that thaw and everything's kind of this muddy, soupy, nasty mess because there's still enough frost in the ground that there's not really anywhere for the water to go. So it's kind of just yuck. But the upside to it is that I don't have to carry as much water, because the waterers don't get frozen and then I don't have to flip them over and kick the ice out and then fill them again, except for Boris and his girlfriend, Betswine, who seem to figure out a way to flip their stinking waterer over every blessed day. So I have to lug water to them. And of course, they're the pigs farthest away from the house. Not that it's that far, but Yeah. Oh, well, it is what it is. Yeah. I don't enjoy that part of winter, and I certainly don't enjoy this mud season. And yet it's probably going to freeze up, and then we're going to have rock hard mud. Ugh, I don't like that, but it is what it is. My grandfather used to say, whether the weather be cold, whether the weather be hot, the weather's the weather, no matter the weather, whether we like it or not. So, Papa, that one's for you. That's still true today, as true today as it was when you quoted it to me many, many years ago. And so we won't complain about it. It just is what it is. This week was a very busy week here on the homestead, though. I did a lot of non-homesteading related stuff. And again, I've shared with you before, this time of the year, I really try to lean into a lot of things that aren't homesteading related. And I'm certainly not going to get into all of that, but some of it does revolve around skiing and snowboarding. I'm a snowboarder, as you know, and so teaching at the local mountain. And in fact, I just got back not too long ago from teaching. I'm recording this on Friday night. Normally I record these episodes on Sunday evening, but I have a lot of things going on Saturday and then Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I am a huge Bengals fan, so very, very excited about the upcoming game. Now, by the time this episode drops, you will know whether or not the Bengals have won or not. So I may need notes of consolation. Or I may need notes. You may hear me screaming and hollering and jumping up and down and celebrating all the way to Timbuktu. If the Bengals can win this Super Bowl, I will be beside myself. But if not, then you may hear some weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And you may not even give two flying flips. you may not be a sports person, and it's all good. But I have been a long suffering Bengals fan since the mid 90s. In fact, I became a Bengals fan during the darkest days of Bengaldom. Why? I don't, well, it was because I lived in Cincinnati. And anyhow, you didn't come to listen to this podcast to hear about sports. So I'll get off of that. But anyhow, so that's why I'm recording this on Friday evening, because just so much going on this week and so much going on over this coming weekend. And it's just all non-homesteading stuff. And in fact, I released the first blog post. I had promised you that I was going to start doing some homesteading content. And I released the first blog post over at the homesteadjourney.net/blog. And really part of the thrust of this post was that I'm not ready for winter to end. Even though I hate schlepping the water and I don't like the mud season and all of these kinds of things, I'm not ready for winter to end. And I'm enjoying the non-homesteading related stuff. And so if you head on over there, the homesteadjourney.net/blog, you'll at least get my random thoughts with regards to that topic. Honestly, that's probably going to be what the blog is, are just random thoughts. Right now, I don't have any kind of plan, a 6-week plan or a 10-week plan or a 52-week plan. I don't have any plan. I'm just going to wing it. But if there is some topic that you want me to cover, let me know. Send me an email. Let me know. And I will try to include it in my ramblings over on the blog. But check it out, the homesteadjourney.net/blog. Let me know what you think. This is uncharted territory for me. And so I would really appreciate honest feedback. If you think it sucks, let me know that. If there's a way that I can be, of help via the blog, let me know that. Certainly, that's always my goal. My goal for this podcast and for this blog is to be helpful to people. You asked for it. Certainly, based on the survey responses back in November, there seemed to be quite a bit of interest in some written homestead content. And so I'm looking forward to doing it just let me know how I'm doing. I would really, really appreciate that feedback. Finally, I have been busy this week lining up some great content for the podcast. If you follow us on social media, you will have seen that I interviewed Amy Dingman this week from A Farmish Kind of Life. And I am so excited about this upcoming episode. I'm just so excited to share it. And it was such an honor to chat with Amy. It was like, normally we would say a brother from another mother, but I don't know, a sister from, they say a sister from another mister, but that's kind of wackadoodle. But there's just that connection that you have sometimes with people where it's like you feel like you've known them your entire life. And that's just the connection that I had in the conversation with Amy. We could have kept going and going and going and going, and I could have made it a 5-hour episode if she would have been willing to stay on that long. It was an honor, and I'm so excited to share it. And her podcast is one that's been a huge encouragement to me. If you haven't discovered her podcast, certainly check it out. Her blog is great. So anyhow, very excited about that. And next week, I'm actually going to be chatting with a couple of local mechanic friends of mine. I figured if I've got this situation where I'm potentially going to have to look for a new farm truck, why not, as I'm going through that process, put together some content that might be helpful to my listening audience who might also find themselves needing to find a farm truck. And especially if you're somebody who is coming from suburbia, this may be the first time you've ever looked into buying a truck. So what things should you look for? And what things should you consider? And I'm not a mechanical guy. I'm not a car guy. I'm not a truck guy. I'm a guy that wants something that's going to get me from point A to point B. I couldn't care less. The color, the make, the model, don't care about any of that. I just want something that's going to meet my needs and get me reliably from point A to point B. And I'm not going to have to continually sink a bunch of money into it and be wrenching on it. I want something reliable. And I don't want to spend a lot of money on it. So anyhow, I'm excited about that. That's going to be next week's episode. And then I also have been talking to my buddy Jack from the Mindful Homestead on getting together and talking about small scale maple syrup production as we kind of get into maple syrup season. Maybe that's something you've been interested in doing. And so hopefully Jack and I are going to be able to connect in the next couple of weeks. And so really, I'm going to be providing a lot more interviews than I normally would have planned as part of the cycle. But I think it's going to be great content, and I'm excited about it. And you're certainly not going to want to miss an episode. Now, before we head on over to this week's Charting the Course, I did want to remind you about the Homestead Journey podcast supporting listeners program. You can sign up to be a supporting listener for as little as $3 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And with that, you will not only receive the satisfaction of helping keep this podcast running, but you will also gain access to the private members group hosted over on Discord. And folks, it is a great group of people, a really positive, fun group. And I think you will find it extremely helpful. I absolutely love being a part of it. And I really think you will too. Now, there are also 2 additional tiers, a $5 a month and a $10 a month tier that have additional perks. If you sign up in the month of February in celebration of kicking off season 3, you will receive a small gift and a handwritten note from me. So head on over to thehomesteadjourney.net/support for more information on the various tiers and to get signed up today. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you. So head on over there and let's do this thing together. All right, let's head on over to this week's Charting the Course. All So as I mentioned earlier in the show, today's episode is going to be another product review. And I am so excited to review this product. It's actually a garden tool that I purchased last year that I used for the entire season. And I'm going to just tell you right from the outset, I love it. It is none other than the Proletariat, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, but the Proletariat Wire Hoe from NeversinkTools.com. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of a wire hoe is a weeder that is constructed, as the name implies, from pieces of sturdy wire bent into various shapes and widths that allow you to carefully weed your garden with minimal soil disturbance and plant damage. Now, Neversink Tools actually has two wire hoe lines, the Proletariat and the Mutineer. The Proletariat, which is the one that I have, comes with a 4-inch wire attachment, and then you can buy a kit that has additional sizes, a 2-inch, a 4-inch offset is what they call it. And really what that means is it's 4 inches with a little bend in it, so that if you turn it on its side, it's got like a 1-inch piece. And then there's a 6-inch attachment that comes along with it. Now, before we talk more about the Proletariat, let me just explain a little bit about the Mutineer line. The Mutineer line does have the same head sizes available in it as the Proletariat, but the connect mechanism between the two is different, which means that the attachments are not interchangeable. But the Mutineer also has additional sizes and configurations that are not available with the Proletariat. However, the Mutineer is more expensive, and there are no attachments that come with the head when you buy it. So any of the attachments that you want with the Mutineer, you have to buy them additionally, whereas the Proletariat does come with a 4-inch attachment included in the price of the head. Now, it's my opinion that the Mutineer line is really geared more for the market gardener, and the Proletariat is geared more for the home gardener. Not to say that if you can afford it and you like the quick attachment and so forth of the Mutineer, that it wouldn't work for the home gardener, and maybe having all of the different attachments would float your boat. But I really do think that the Proletariat for most people is going to be sufficient. Now, certainly I haven't used the Mutineer, so I can't tell you what I'm missing out on, as I don't know what I don't know. But I do feel like the options that I have with the Proletariat are more than adequate for my needs. And I really feel that that would be the same for most home gardeners. Now, keep in mind that I do a lot of square foot gardening. So that means that I am planting more plants in a smaller area. Square foot gardening is all about density. So that means that a traditional garden hoe or a stirrup hoe isn't always going to be as nimble as what I need. It's not going to fit into a lot of the plant spacings that I use. But not only that, I also find sometimes that I have a hard time controlling the traditional garden hoe. I have a tendency to get a traditional garden hoe too deep in the dirt and really kind of dig things up. And I also have a tendency to damage the plants that I'm trying to protect by weeding around them. And what I have found with the Proletariat wire hoe is that it is very, very nimble. It's very light, and it is very easy to use. Now, depending on the garden method that you use, you may find that the 4-inch head is more than sufficient for you and maybe all that you need. If you're using traditional spacing of plants, then the 4-inch wire head attachment may be the only attachment that you need. But if you are someone like me who does a lot of square foot gardening, or you experiment with dense planting, then I would highly recommend that you do go ahead and buy the attachment kit. Now, I absolutely love this Proletariat tool from the standpoint of the ability to very quickly, with no tools, to be able to swap between heads. In fact, what it uses is a simple wing nut. It's just a wing nut that you tighten and loosen, and then you can swap in and out the various attachments. If you buy the kit actually comes with a carabiner. So what you do is you just clip that to your belt, and the different wire hoe attachments hang off of it. And then as you need them, you just loosen the wing nut, pop the one off, put it on the carabiner, pop the other one in, tighten the wing nut up, and you are back in business and on your merry way. If there's one complaint that I have, though, with regards to the Proletariat attachments, it's that there is a gap in the connection end that really allows for them to slip off the carabiner. And for those of you that watch this on YouTube, I'll demonstrate it. It's kind of hard to explain. But if you head on over to their site, neversinctools.com, you'll quickly see what I'm talking about. But right here is the carabiner, and I've got the tools hanging on it. And if you notice at the edge of this, there is this gap on the attachment. And so if you're not careful, what ends up happening, and that's not a good example, but let me just, you see that just fell right off. Just if it gets knocked just the right way, it will come right off of the carabiner. And I have had them fall out on me out in the garden. I've had to go look for them. And so I certainly didn't like that. That's my biggest complaint about these, is that gap with a carabiner, that they have a tendency to fall off. Now, the nice thing about the Mutineer system, because it uses a quick connect system, that is closed up on the end. And so it's not possible for those attachments to fall off of the carabiner. I really do like that about the Mutineer system. You just don't have that fear of losing the attachments in your garden. So I think this year I'm going to try maybe wrapping a little bit of wire around those ends to kind of close it up a little bit. You have to be careful because you don't want to get it too far down so that it won't connect properly. But I think if I do it kind of right up at the top edge of that, I think I can do it either with a little bit of wire or maybe with a zip tie. And we'll see if that works. But that's really my only complaint with regards to the Proletariat is that gap where those attachments can fall off of your belt if you're not careful. But I really, really love being able to swap those heads. I mean, that really is what takes the value of this tool to the next level. Now, you may initially look at the Proletariat and say, that's expensive for a hoe, because the head with a handle is about $50. If you were to buy the head and the handle from neversinctools.com, it's about $50, which is about $20 more than a regular hoe that you're going to get at Lowe's, right? A regular hoe at Lowe's right now is about $30. And then if you buy the additional attachments on top of that from neversinctools.com, you're looking at about another $30. So if you add all of that up, you're looking at about $80, and you still haven't calculated shipping on top of it. So now you might be sitting there saying, Brian, you're crazy. This is not a good value. But hear me out on this. First of all, I would suggest that you order the Proletariat without the handle. For less than $10, you can get a hardwood handle at a home improvement store. Secondly, think of it like this. By ordering the attachments, you are actually getting 4 tools for the price of 1. You are getting a hoe that's 6 inches wide, a hoe that is 4 inches wide, a hoe that is 2 inches wide. And then by turning the offset hoe on its side, you're getting a hoe that's a little over 1 inch wide. So if you were to price all of that out, if you were to try to buy, and I don't even know if you can buy hoes in all of those configurations. I know you can buy narrow hoes, and you can buy kind of certain weeders and pointy hoes and all of those kinds of things. So if you were to buy 4 different hoes, 4 different widths to meet all of those things and price all of that out, let's just assume that they were $30 a piece. Now you're way more than the Proletariat, and you're having to lug around 4 different pieces of equipment. And who wants to lug that many tools out to the garden? As I said earlier, I love how nimble this tool is. Because it's lightweight, it is very, very easy to control. I can really get in between plants that are closer together in my square foot gardening method. And while eventually weeds did get the better of me last year, and I confessed that, right? You may remember that. It wasn't the fault of this tool. When I was taking time to weed the garden, you may remember last year, I was like, I'm going to weed 10 minutes a day. Well, that 10 minutes a day out in the square foot garden, my plan was to weed 4 to 5 beds each day. And I could do that in 10 minutes using this tool because it is so nimble, because it is so quick, because it is so lightweight. I could weed 4 to 5 square foot garden beds, some of them 9 feet long, some of them 12 feet long. I could weed that many beds in about 10 minutes. It really, really works well, as long as you use it. And when I kind of quit doing that, well, then I did, weeds started to get the better of me, but that was not by any stretch of the imagination the fault of this tool. Now, let me tell you this, my favorite attachment is the 4-inch offset attachment. So that's the one that's about 4 inches wide, but there's a little bit of a bend in it. So if you turn it on its edge, now there's about a 1 inch or maybe 1.5 inch wide component to it where I could really get in between those tight spaces where I had plants planted closely together. And that really is the head that's on my hoe more than, I would say, 80% of the time, maybe even more than that. I rarely take it off because based on the square foot gardening method, it just works well for me. If I've got just one plant per square foot, I can really work it around well with that 4-inch side. And then, where I've got 8 or 9 per square foot, I can really get in between them by just simply flipping the hoe on its edge and using that narrower part. So really, really love that attachment. If you're interested in taking a look, head on over to neversinctools.com. But I also have some great news for you. This past week, I reached out to them and I told them that I was going to be doing a product review. And I wondered if they'd be willing to offer a coupon code to my listeners. And they graciously agreed. And so if you order between now and February 28th, 2022, so in the next 2 weeks after this episode launches, use the code Homestead Journey, all one word, no spaces, Homestead Journey at checkout, and you will receive 5% off any wire hoe. Again, that's neversinctools.com. So I hope you found this product review helpful. If you have any further questions, send me an email, brian@thehomesteadjourney.net. And until next time, everybody, keep up the good work.